I just opened my silhouette image in Photoshop. So now I can do, first of all, the Photoshop workflow. So you can go in, adjust the levels, adjust the curves, maybe adjust the saturation. Maybe you want it to be brighter or more black and white. So those are a couple of the basic edits you can go through and do now, and especially worry about doing those on your final image. But what I want you to practice is adding texture to your photo. So I have a texture photo saved to my desktop, so I'm going to load that on top of this image in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to File and then down to Place Linked, and I'm finding where I had saved my image, and then I'm going to hit Place. So this is my texture picture, and I'm going to make it so that it stretches my entire photo, and then I'm going to hit Enter. And obviously it's covering up my silhouette, so to change that I'm going to go down into my layers panel where it says normal, and I'm going to adjust the overlay. Multiply usually works the best, so I'm going to click multiply right away, and you're able to see that texture come through in the background. However, if multiply doesn't look great on your image, you can go through and change or select some of these different overlays, and they're all going to create a slightly different effect on your image. Some might look better than others, but that's something you can play around with, see what you like. So this one here, Color Dodge, looks interesting on my image. It might be adding a little bit too much to the background, so if you wanted to take the opacity down on your texture, that's another good option to maybe push it a little bit further into the background. So now I'm going to add a texture to my silhouette, just because I feel like that could maybe tie everything in a little bit more. So I'm going to go up to the top where it says File and then Place Linked again, and I'm going to select my second texture, and I'm going to hit Place. And now that I have this second texture selected, I'm going to make it the size of my silhouette that I want it to fill, and then I'm going to hit the check button. Now obviously I don't want this to go into the background of my image, so what I'm going to have to do first is hide the layer and hide my other texture layer, so I just have my silhouette selected, and then I'm going to have to actually go around the outside and select around my silhouette. So the quickest way to do that is probably this, which is called the Magic Wand tool. You could also use the Quick Selection tool right above it. Either one of those would work pretty well for selecting the silhouette. And all I'm going to do is just click on the silhouette, and it automatically is selecting and outlining it for me. Now I'm going to bring my texture layer back now, and I'm going to select it. And right now I have my silhouette selected, the outline of that. However, I want the texture to be just on my silhouette. So I'm going to inverse my selection so I have the outside of it selected. So I'm going to go up to the top here where it says Select, and then I'm going to just hit Inverse. And then all I have to do is hit my eraser tool over here, and then I'm going to start erasing the background. Right away this will pop up. You do need to rasterize the image, so just hit OK. And then you can go ahead and just erase the image from the background. You can change the size of your eraser as well, of your brush, just so it's a little bit larger, so it'll go a little bit quicker. But go ahead and erase the entire background here, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now that I have my just my silhouette outlined, I don't need my selection anymore, so I'm going to hit Command and then D on the keyboard to get rid of my selection. Now the next step again is going over to the overlay, because you might want some of that image to be a little bit darker. However, as you're starting to go through these, a lot of them are probably not going to show up since the silhouette is so dark. So something that works really well is if you just leave that on normal and just change the opacity level. And that's probably going to be the best way to add that texture to your silhouette itself. So that's something you can experiment with. You might want only the texture on the shoes, which could be kind of interesting to kind of show separation between where those shoes are. So you can always go back in and just start erasing that texture off of the rest of your image. However, instead of erasing, I would probably add a layer mask to your photo and then just use the paintbrush like what we did with multiplicity. That way you can always go back if you don't like what you did. So I'm going to undo that. But go ahead, experiment, add a texture to your background, and to your actual silhouette, and then save it as a JPEG when you're done and submit the final image back to Classroom for credit.